Good evening and welcome to the March 15th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Austin Planning Board. Evening, we have 3 items on the agenda, and we're going to take the items in reverse order because 2 of them are very short. So, first item is Chocolate Skies, 39 Storytown Road subdivision. It's a request for an extension subdivision plat. It's like, yes.
Good evening, my name is Chuck Hutchins, with Lincoln Engineering, representing the applicant's 39 Storytown Road subdivision. And yes, unfortunately, we're here back again asking for another extension.
This is the last one.
It's really a question for your staff, to be honest with you. We don't know exactly what needs to be done to square this away. We've got a signed plat in your secretary's hands that's been signed by everybody with the chairman.
Okay.
We believe we have a fully completed set of documents. We think we've addressed all the resolution conditions, so we're at a bit of a loss as to what else we should do, but we're trying to work with your staff to figure that out.
Okay. No, we just got the documents.
Right, so I mean, I can talk about the documents that I needed, which were the landscape documents, which I received today, and I reviewed it. So I'm okay with what has been provided based upon resolution requirements. I know Christy is dealing with certain documents.
So there is the below market rate declaration for one of the units, or one of the lots, as well as the stormwater maintenance declaration. We received the recording documents and the final versions of those today. So, and I had conveyed this by email to the applicant's engineer earlier today, that the town board's next legislative session is on March 28th. So I will make sure that there is a resolution on for the town board's consideration to approve the stormwater maintenance agreement on that date. I had asked the applicant to provide hard original copies of all of the signed documents so that they can be countersigned by the town once everything has been approved. I see no reason why that should take more than 90 days, much less.
Thanks, Christie. May I have a motion?
Yes,
To approve the extension?
that's our motion for extension. Second.
Have you voted? Donna? Yeah. Wilson?
Yes. Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
The second item is 381 North Highland Avenue, St. Augustine property, energy storage system is also a request for extension of time to complete the site plan items.
We have David Rose on Zoom.
Okay, David?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, and thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here presenting. My name is David Droz. I'm here on behalf of NL. We are a renewable energy storage and solar developer. This project was originated by another firm. We are now, which we have acquired and are preparing to construct. The construction schedule is set to begin this like late spring, early summer. However, the current site use permit expires at the end of April. So this request is for an extension to ensure that that permit does not lapse and that we can continue to implement the project.
Sorry.
Valerie, do you have more to say on this?
No.
So, have a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the.
Do you want to discuss how long of an extension you want to give them? Site plan is different than subdivision. So subdivision, the board is only allowed to give 90 days. For site plan, it can be, it's usually a year. So it's up to the board how long you would like to extend it.
Mr. Droz, is 6 months enough?
I believe so. Can I please clarify with the board? The permit validity is only until construction starts, until our mobilization, or does it have to be through final sign off? With
You have to submit a valid and complete building permit application.
So if we haven't received final sign off from buildings before the 6 month, but if there was a 6 month extension, then we would have to file another permit.
No, as long as you file it, then you've met your deadline. And then however long it takes the building department to process it is, another story. But the question is, how long are you going to need? And, it can't be just a bare bones, we're filling out a page of paper. We need the plans, we need everything substantive in order for it to be processed. So I think you should be realistic about what your timeline is and frank with the board so that they can give you the time that you need if you can justify it.
Understood. Our current final completion date is currently scheduled for the end of July 2024. So that would be, that would be more than 12 months to final completion. So
my recommendation for the board would be, Mr. Mentor had mentioned 6 months. I don't know if you want to make it a little bit longer, maybe make it 9 months and at least have the applicant come back and readdress to the board where they are in the process, just so that you can make sure it's still moving forward. But generally, these things do take time.
So that would be October then. Basically 9 months.
9 months, no, it's March, it gets us to, into December,
Yeah.
which should be fine. I assume construction won't be happening then, so we can get some sort, well, maybe it is, but I'm fine with 9 months, it seems
Okay.
reasonable.
Right.
Does that work for the applicant? And then we'll get an update if there needs to be one?
it does, absolutely. I think that actually will work well because the battery delivery itself is expected in December. So we will be able to have a very material update and a lot of sort of construction certainty after December. So I guess if it were up to the board to just make it the end of the year, and we could provide an update in January, that might be an amicable resolution.
Fine.
No objection to that. Our approval is going to be different from the building department. I mean, it's still going to go through.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so I'll make a motion to grant an extension to 381 North Highland Avenue for the time to complete site plan items through December 31, 2023. So about 9.5 minutes.
Second.
Second?
John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
Can I just ask the name of the new company? The name of the new company?
Enel.
What is it?
E-N-E-L. E-N-E-L.
Mhm.
It was Borrego. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Borrego, and Borrego has since actually changed their name to become New Leaf Energy.
Okay.
And yeah, Greg and Karina we're still working closely with them, and Will, and that team is still, and obviously the property owner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Have your-
Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you this evening. So is that all?
That's all.
That's it.
Okay. Good night. Good evening.
Okay, that brings us to, return home. Yes, and, review of the, yes,
I think it's F.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I made a mistake there.
Okay.
So, you all had the draft of the FEIS.
Yeah.
I went through the document. We also have John Canning, who is, from Kinley Horn, who's one of the team traffic engineers that have also been reviewing, the documents. You also, so you have his comments, you have my comments. You also have comments from Annie as well as comments from Donna. So I don't know how you want to kind of have the discussions tonight. We can go through the different memos. I don't know if you had a chance to review the memos. So if you just want to have an open discussion about some of the comments or just your thoughts in general. I mean, bottom line is we have sent all the comments over to the applicant. But at some point, if there are particular comments that or additional comments you want to add, or particular comments you feel that don't need to be addressed by the applicant, then I can always relay that information over. But ultimately, if the board decides to have the applicant respond to all the comments that we have, then I'll also relay that information to them as well. So it's really however you'd like to run through everything tonight. And
Well, why don't
Your-
we run through your memo first and see. You know, like these items like this. We'll start with the general comments, so.
sure, I mean, I think that just the general comments that I had were that there were 6 additional submissions that were not listed in the EIS, so we're asking them to be included and to also to respond to them. Then we just noted that there's a discrepancy in some of the executive summary project descriptions, either 95 or 96 units, so we asked them to clarify that. And then also that technically by seeker regulations, you need to reference or incorporate the SDEIS into the FEIS, and that just needs to be a technicality, but we want to make sure that it's correct.
Just a Valerie question on that first comment.
Yeah.
Only 6 of the sets of public comments were listed.
Yeah.
Will we then review the responses?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So similar process, but kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also, once they respond to, or once they update the FEIS, we'll also review anything else that we had.
Just a quick question. In reviewing the additional documents that you attached to, your memo, it seemed to me that at least 3 of the comments were identical.
Right, so when there are identical
So-
comments, that they can just group them as a comment, yeah, and then just note the different sources of the problem.
Actually, they may have answered one of the that was similar, so
Right,
it may just be a question of adding
Reference.
exactly.
references
Yeah.
that comment by comment by
That's
comment. Okay, all right, so it's not.
Just 1 second, we're on your memo.
Yes. Then we just finished the general documents.
So,
Between 95 or 96.
6. When we did the stackers, we were able to get another stacker.
Then the document just needs to be done. All right, so response to comments.
Valerie, is that the best way to do it?
I mean, if you'd like, I mean, it's really up to you, however you.
I mean,
We certainly would like it.
yeah,
So there's no question.
great.
Okay.
So, one.
All right, so, so comment A1, we just asked the applicant to provide, it asked for it to provide a better explanation of the price point. So we wanted to just get more clarification, or it should be there in the document, like what are stacker units, just basically identifying, what those units are, if they're, containing two dwelling units, if they're one building, just so that it's identifying stacker units, and then also,
Can I just explain what it is real quick, so you just have a general understanding? Is that right?
I think, well, I mean,
Is that,
I don't know.
I think it'd be
if there's-
helpful.
I don't,
But I think-
ultimately, they have to respond
Right,
to writing, so,
Right.
I know, but I'm just so you hear it from me.
well, that,
We have a lot of memos. If we're gonna do one by one,
That's the only one I think out of all of this. I think it's important for you to understand what the stackers are, because it runs through a lot of this. The
Yeah.
rest are fairly simple. Stacker are two L-shaped units. So it's an L, so it's a three-story unit. And then they interlock. So the mid-level has part of the upper unit and also part of the lower unit. And they range in size around 20, including garages, around 21 to about 2,800 square feet.
how's the upper unit access? Is it a shared stairwell, two different entrances?
They each have their own entrances. Yes.
And it's the same for the affordable units. It's the
The
same.
portables are stackers. Yes.
So it's 1.5 range as well.
Yes.
The old affordables. are
And then, and let me just
exclusively
add to that
stackers?
too. It's a good point.
Is that-
We were asked to also give some lower price point units. And the stackers are the units that will come in a lot lower. As well as be the affordable units.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a question for Valerie or maybe our attorney. Do affordable units have to be an equal representation of the mix throughout development, or can they all be stacker units?
So that.
That was, sorry, Valerie.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was a comment on the DEIS. That was something that the town board had commented on, and I believe the applicant addressed it. The way that it was originally designed, the affordable units were going to be somewhat congregated, and I believe that's been addressed. Glenn, if you have any further detail on that.
We're in 4 locations.
What's that?
We have spread it out. They were all in one cluster and now
Right.
areas, but they're in several areas. Yeah.
And there are requirements in the code, Jason, as to how the affordable units can compare in terms of size and dimensions and layout to the market rate units. So those have to be complied with as well for any development.
Right, and that is a couple of comments within our comments that need to be better described in the SEFDIS. And to also specifically related to the affordable housing regulations in the town. Versus, I think the applicant referred to HUD regulations, but it's really the.
Maybe I'm thinking of county regulations or a different municipality where you're building a multifamily building with 10 1-bedrooms, 10 2-bedrooms, and 10
Yes.
3-bedrooms. The affordables have to be 1-1-1. They have to be 10% representative of the unit.
So,
So that's, yeah, so that's what I don't
We have to have a
understand
certain
here.
number, whatever the percentages of, we have 2s and 3s.
So I think we're asking the applicant to provide that information in the next round.
Okay, okay.
Right, so the next is
So the next, I mean, the next comment really just notes that, just dealing with table references and just that's more of like a minor,
the housekeeping.
yeah, that's a housekeeping thing. Comment number 3, specifically, had to do with landscaping. While the applicant did reply that, during final site plan, that they'll deal with the landscaping plan at that point. But we did want to, that the response should include on the number of trees that will be reserved, as well as the location of the site plan. And then we felt that response to IA7 should also include some example plant species that are considered. In addition, the town also has landscaping standards that should be incorporated into this.
Look, we've been going back and forth on this, and we really need to drill down. We will be preparing a very detailed landscaping plan as part of the site plan review, and I'm sure Donna will be very much involved in And we don't know at this stage exactly which trees are going to be taken down. The site plan does give a fairly good representation of what trees will come down. But until we do a formal site plan, we don't know the exact trees that are going to come down.
Is a tree
It's
survey
definitely
required at this
being-
point or no? Beth?
They already did a tree survey, so we're just asking that, you know, they can just show general locations
But it's
where.
not, in my opinion, it's not an updated or accurate tree survey.
But taking that aside, is this the stage in which any applicant, this applicant, any applicant would have to decide or tell us which trees are coming down, or is?
Well, in other EISs that I reviewed and also worked on at this point, sometimes, you know, that is, it is an issue, it is a concern from the board, and also the EAC, about how many trees are coming down. So they've already identified how many trees are coming down, but we're asking for the general location of those trees, so you have a better sense of what buffers or not buffers are being, you know, going to be preserved on the site.
But
So it's,
I have to answer this. We're going to be planting new trees as well. Many of those trees are unhealthy that are on the site. We're going to be planting new trees. We're very sensitive to the buffers. Throughout our documents from 8 years ago till today, we have repeatedly say how sensitive we are to the people on Grandview, to the people on Pershing, to the people on First and Second Avenues. And during a formal landscape plan that would be submitted during the formal site plan application, we will get down to the details and the planting details. And I'm sure Donna will be, definitely plugged on in all of this. She'll be our first point person that we'll go to, but to kind of like get deep into it now is a waste of time.
Well, the questions that were asked by the EAC asked that you revise the proposed plantings along the retaining wall and to ensure preservation of mature trees. And all you need to do is respond how you're going to do that. You did not.
so may I just ask, so when, I'm just having trouble following this, like compared to the unit comments, because I know I probably should have sent it after you, because I know we overlapped a bit.
Right.
So when you're saying comments 1A5, is that section 1?
That is the comment in the SFEIS.
Right.
Yeah.
It says,
Is that a page number? Like, what is-
no, it's not.
Oh,
It's actually the comment itself.
Okay, because I know the comment.
So the comments are noted by number 1 and 3.
Oh, okay, all right, so my problem is that it is an environmental impact statement, analysis, like that we're going through here. And a tremendous amount of trees are coming down, it's very hard to look at the plans and then figure out where there's even possibility of saving trees, the way that the site plans are. You know, and
This is-
you're gonna be
right.
planting trees, but
This
they're
is-
gonna be, little tiny diameter trees compared to what's coming down. So there is an impact. So that's, I do feel like it was a question that should be answered.
One is your question that if we had a better idea of where they were coming down and what was being replaced, we'd have a better idea of whether or not this is a significant adverse environmental impact.
If there's any trees that are gonna be able to be
Okay,
saved.
so. So that seems reasonable. What do you think?
So,
Another thing for the board to just keep in mind while you're thinking about the trees, is that a few years ago, the town board did amend the code to put in the tree legislation that for a certain amount of trees that are taken down, at least 50% of the caliber inch has to be replaced. Otherwise, money has to put into a tree bank fund per caliper inch. I believe it's 285, but I'll double check those numbers. So there are provisions in place to make sure that there is a certain level of replacement for tree removal. That's not to say that that doesn't eliminate this board's jurisdiction to look at tree removal during the secret process and the impacts associated with it. But there are remedies that the board will be looking at further on in the process.
Right, the problem is always, the big problem is that it's a 50% replacement with trees that are gonna take 50 years to get to the level that the ones are being replaced. So we just need to know, when you look at, if there's a way to show on the site plan, you know, the construction envelope where everything's gonna be decimated, and then,
There is a way to do
yeah,
it.
I think that would be helpful.
So the comment from our planner addresses that, the applicant will have to do that. Do we want to move to the next comment, or should we keep talking about this one?
No, that's fine to go.
So basically, you have a rough idea of what your envelope is, right?
And you've been given it many
Okay,
times.
so,
And that envelope shows you the footprint and you
So
have,
put it in an envelope.
just let me finish. And you have a tree plan. And you can tell what trees are coming down today.
okay, so just,
So is this a work session, Valerie? Is that the purpose?
That is,
So us to engage with the applicant, so
You don't have to engage with them.
okay, that's what I was asking. So I think we should go through the document. If the applicant has questions as to the comments, we can clarify it, and then therefore it'll be more efficient when the response comes. But I don't know that we need to have a debate over these, right? These are our comments. The applicant has to, or the applicant's representatives, engineers, professionals have to respond to these comments,
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay, so we should continue.
So ultimately, this is the final environmental impact statement that is adopted is going to be the planning board's document. So one way or another, what you want to see in this document is going to be in this document. So, you know, obviously it's beneficial to have the applicant here to hear what's being said, and they will be provided with all the comments to the extent they haven't been already. But absolutely, you know, the board needs to be comfortable with what is being put into this document, because it'll be yours.
Okay,
Yeah, I have to say one, and I apologize if you think I'm interrupting. But we've gone through this so many times, and we literally thought the last time we were submitting it was the final time.
well, unfortunately, that's not the case.
I know it. Let me finish, please.
Do we have to let the applicant speak?
Because we have to answer this. And if we don't understand what you're looking for, it will go through this one
Then you
more
should,
time.
then I think it'd be efficient when we have a comment, you can ask your question and we can clarify. It doesn't seem like that's what's occurring. It seems like you're telling us you provided that information before. To the extent you have, apologies that maybe we don't see it in here. But I think a productive dialogue is what we need. And if it's going to be a continued, I provided this and we say we don't know where it is, that doesn't seem like it's going to be a productive use of anyone's time this evening.
But it's also not going to be productive if we just go through this once again and there's not clarity amongst you as to what is really being asked.
that's what,
Okay.
That's why we have a planner.
Well, no, anyway, because we've done this so many times now.
that's why,
This is the first FDS.
That's not,
This is the first draft of the S budget.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
All right.
Glenn, you're responding to new comments. You're responding to new comments on a new proposal that is different than what's happened in the past, okay? So the consultants turn this around in a month to address everything and to review it so that we can keep this process moving. But you really have to appreciate what the planning board's trying to do right now in going through everything that's being presented to them. And obviously, no one's looking to do something that isn't necessary or to replicate efforts, but there are issues that need to be addressed. You know, I know you've been at this for a long time. We have new board members who have not been around quite as long. So why don't we just have a productive conversation and go through it so that we can keep this going?
all right, we're moving on to 1B4.
So I just, again, the applicant, as part of their response to the spot zoning issue and the question of spot zoning, they made a note that the town code states that properties that otherwise meet the requirements of the multifamily district can apply to be rezoned anywhere in the town and not necessarily adjacent to the existing MM zones, which are predominantly within the western side of the unincorporated Austin was noted. And we are just asking for clarification that where does it state in the town code that that can be applied? It might be that there referring to town law or something like that, but that just needs to be clarified. They specifically say it states that in town code.
Okay.
So we,
And just to jump, sorry to interrupt, just to jump on what Valerie said, you know, we've had this conversation. This is one of these issues that, to Glenn's point, has been around for a long time. We have looked at this from a legal standpoint. We do not think this is spot zoning. This is an obviously unique property, very different from the neighboring surrounding properties in the same zoning district. We just want to make sure that legally the standards are satisfied within the FEIS to support that. And I'm happy to have a conversation with the applicant's attorney to try to figure out language to do that if need be.
okay, and then, the next item just also seems to be a housekeeping item.
Yeah, it's
And
all with
then
the variances.
Which
And
was basically
asking-
left out.
Right, we're asking them to identify the variance.
Right. And you say that it's provided in a table, but then there is no table,
Right.
so. It's real, that's just a housekeeping item. 116.
Around these 7, we felt was not complete, and we felt that the applicant should refer to mitigation measures, plans, maps, images, and in the DEIS to be able to complete that.
You have any questions?
I don't know what this, I don't have the document.
Sandy's getting the paper documents, right? with me. Question.
Well, it seems like you're pointing out just the kind of.
Right.
Or
Right.
reference that needs to be added.
Yes.
Right.
Comment I, 1B9, the applicant was asked if someone has to install an elevator because they cannot maneuver the stairs, what would be the cost, and who would bear that cost? The elevators be wheelchair accessible. The applicant did not address those questions. In response to IB10, we're just suggesting that they provide a table of unit types and sizes and measurements.
That's on the cover of a set.
Right. In response to, 11, we are asked to include, the accessibility, for various income levels. How the project would be accessible to various income levels, that was a question of whether they have to respond to it, and it's one from the town board, and I think it would be helpful when the town board really could, let's be incorporated.
That was a particular interest of a couple of board members,
Yes.
and so it kind of. That's interesting. Maybe that.
I hear you, we'll do it.
That's all, so that, doesn't come.
Right, so, 1B12, we wanted them to explain how the affordable units would comply with the town code. Again, they didn't refer to the town code, and they didn't stop how the units would be. And that goes back to Jason.
Right.
HUD requirements
So
are
it's really-
Development, or they are.
Well, I mean, they refer to HUD, but HUD not really a bond is a.
Okay, well, so that,
Right, so you
Okay.
just, I mean, basically just need.
so it's a different reference.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We'll just expand it.
It's just a different reference to the town code.
So, the 14, we just, again, said about to address the concerns of the proposed project with greater impacts than prior approval. Please provide detailed response to concerns raised in retaining walls, impervious coverage, stormwater runoff, tree removal, open space. Again, this is a town board comment.
Mhm.
And so we felt that it should be detailed in response to the town board, since they will be voting on the proposed rezoning.
So can we just talk about this a little bit, because we want to be really clear, because we've given cross sections, we redesigned the project specifically to move those units back. So we're not entirely clear as to what you're going to do.
So it sounds like the narrative in part, Valerie, that explains what's been done. So I think the retaining walls have been improved, it's right, they've been they're shorter and stacked, so
Right.
just, it's not, maybe I'm wrong, but a
Right,
narrative response kind of explaining what those efforts have been
Right.
and how it's been improved since the last go around and how that responds to these concerns.
And you can also refer them to the diagrams provided.
right. I mean, the applicant,
It's really.
I understand, a lot more clarity.
right, well, the applicant responded that it's the townhouse plan, the applicant is very responsible with use of the property and provides the housing type that is needed for the greater Austin area. Project will generate significant tax revenue to the town and school district and will offer 10 new affordable townhomes that have minimal traffic generation and no school children. All the new tax revenues to the district will be new revenues that will help the school support new programs. So there was no discussion of the stormwater tree removal, impervious coverage, retaining walls and open space that were asked in the question. And so we're saying.
But it sounds like there's good answers to that. The retaining walls have been
There are.
improved.
There are-
The
But they
previous
need to-
coverage has been reduced, so.
Right.
So I think we're just seeking detailed.
They are asking, it is a very different project than the first one preserved a lot of open space and green buffer, and this one does not. So I
Yeah.
think that was another thing.
Yeah. They didn't want to move it to, they didn't want to move it. The town, I mean, the town board approved that, so.
Maybe that could be part of the answer.
Should be.
And look, you left these 5 fronts, which is the easiest part to build on. Over Croton Dam Road, that's the flattest, the easiest to access. We left it open, albeit with some swales. Everybody wanted that too.
Yeah,
Can't make
so
everybody happy.
the next comment again goes back to the trees,
Right.
comment made from the town board, and we're just asking for additional information on the tree.
1G15.
Yes.
Which it should be.
It was
You have a
15
map of
$15.
what the, of what, you have a map of what the envelope is, it's just like.
Well, so here,
people.
it's the comment says, can removal of any of these trees be avoided? If they can't be avoided, an explanation of why they can't be avoided would be sufficient. It sounds like that might be the answer to that. The impact of replacing mature trees with younger trees. If you have, landscape architect or environmental engineer on staff, that could give an answer to that. So it sounds like we're just looking for specific answers to the specific points that we're asking the comments. Is that about right for this one? I think great.
That, I would say that's most of the comments.
B17
Is also not complete. A minimum response should provide details from the proposed plan, addresses cut, how the proposed plan addresses cut and fill volumes and import of them.
I mean, can I respond to that a little bit? So when we get down to, like, once again, site plan level of design, where everything is, we literally get into all of the site construction drawings, all of the profiles of the roads. That's when we'll know with great specificity what has to be cut, what has to be filled. And so up until that point, and one of our objectives is to get as close to balancing the site as possible, for sure. But I mean,
But so,
if that's a satisfactory answer, that's certainly our objective.
well, but so there hasn't been a cut fill estimate yet. That seems like that would be, yeah, right?
We
So,
have done rough, we
Sure.
definitely have done rough.
and it seems like this question is saying,
It's asking about how.
what are long-term impacts? So if an engineer on, if one of the applicant's engineers can comment on generally, there are no long-term impacts of cut and fill, there aren't. Where would it come from? If you don't know at this point, that's a sufficient answer. You probably don't know where the cut, or rather the fill would come from. Will it be inspected? I assume so. So.
They can include, and I think I'm sure you would do this, that there would be a certification of the fill. Right, when you get it, so.
There's the response to the answer, well, at the time of fill, certification will be provided to the.
Dan, you've gone through this in other projects.
But generally, the cut and fill are evenly.
Well, to the extent they can, of course.
I mean, but that's, that's a refinement as you develop the property, you start to, you get into the final grading. It's in everybody's interest to
minimize the amount of material either being imported or exported.
Right.
But it's.
Soil is one material, but it's gonna be probably imported from someplace else, because that's the most important aspect, you know.
Look, so I think what I'm hearing is that just a little more detail and response, and this is a town board question, and they have some important say so further on in this process. So it's probably beneficial to expand upon the response.
But I do think if there is gonna be fill-in ordered, that there would be a certification.
You know,
I
it's
think
most
that-
likely that we will be exporting.
Right, then it wouldn't even be an issue, so just on the chance
be
that it is, I think that would clarify that and part of that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Want to keep going down?
Yeah, so I guess number, comment 2.5,
Okay.
that refers to, again, the affordability, question. So again, they just need to go back and just explain how those units will meet the town code.
Okay.
If
the applicant has it, but like, let's,
I'm sorry, I was.
no, exactly, we should give you
1.5.
time to keep up, and if you have a question, let's be as productive and
Right.
efficient. So we discussed affordability, I think, in an earlier comment, so more detail is gonna be provided. I don't know if it's the same detail, but this comment is as just asking that more detail be provided and explain how it complies. I assume that's something.
Yeah, it's going, I'm mulling it around in my head. We'll just expand it and as
Great.
much as we can.
Okay.
So, I mean, the unit sizes that we're going to be providing are much greater than what is mandated by the town's code. So
I think that would be a beneficial component of the response.
Yeah.
Right.
And
They're
it would
definitely
be
large.
helpful if you could clarify what makes the unit so affordable. Is it the size? Is it much smaller than the regular?
well, the affordables are dictated by town's code.
That's one, yeah.
60% of AMI, so that drives it. How it ties into, and then it's a much more complicated form because it's a condo. But that dictates those, and then the request by the town board to have a bigger bandwidth of units so that there are some less costly units is why we introduced all of the stackers that will also be, you know, the stackers, and they will be, you know, market rate, but they'll come in at a lower price point.
That a lot of that would make for a very good response to this.
And as I mentioned earlier, there are provisions in the code that regulate how the design and size of the affordable units can compare to the market rate units. So that is accounted for to a certain extent.
Okay.
So comment 2.6, we response says, we noted that, so does not mention the type of trail that will be proposed, will there be sidewalks along the emergency access way, and will there be sidewalks in the interim roads within the rural. So we just need responses to this.
And I guess with the traffic consultant, I mean, they had the recommendation is to sidewalks in certain places, and I'm not quite sure that.
Should we need, and I'm just asking,
Yeah.
should we go through one memo at a time?
No, I'm just saying generally.
I saw that, yeah, the traffic memo, so it might very well be that an answer to one of the traffic memo comments is the same as an answer to some of these
this,
comments,
yes.
which would be great and more efficient.
That's the.
I mean, we're trying to have for those access ways out to the park. We'd like it to look as natural as possible and to be as pervious as possible, but you know, weight bearing. So this will be something that we'll discuss with Don when we get to that point. We want to avoid sidewalk if we can.
Again, response 2.7 again refers back, I mean, basically just deals with the sidewalks, just more information about sidewalks and to connect to that. In response.
Well, maybe, Mr. Canning? If we discuss any comment, though we're doing it through our planner's memo that relates to any comments of yours, or you want to provide insight or answers or guidance to the applicant, please feel free to chime in. I'm not putting you on the spot now. I don't know that you have anything to say, but if a traffic or transportation related comment in here, you think you can add color to, I think that would be helpful for everyone.
But we will
Well,
be-
Yeah.
If you're discussing the sidewalk issue now, I'll chime in and come back to the other stuff. If you're sort of moving on to that, I can talk about the sidewalks later.
So what do you think? Should we keep it to memo to memo?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you. We'll wait till we get to your memo. for your
Okay,
comment.
thank you.
Yeah, That's too, okay, 4-1.
Yeah, so 4-1, we just asked, in the response to the comment from Ron, please provide a summary of the geotechnical work done to date and its results, and also provide estimates of where on-site blasting is most likely to occur. So we understand that they don't know all the details, but they specifically said in their response at this point in time, and based upon geotechnical investigations conducted to date, so we're asking what those geotechnical investigations are. And then also they should have an idea,
Literally want the report,
who would like the information, yes, well,
report.
That can be coming, for sure.
Right.
Add the report, make an internal reference to it in the document.
we're good, and then, yes. And that, they're saying that based upon the study, it's not feasible to estimate the magnitude of the blasting or basically where the blast would occur, and we're saying, well, there should be a way to be able to say where they, based on a geotechnical report, where they think the potential areas of blasting might need to be.
Do you think that's an issue based on whatever reports were done? They weren't to that level of detail, and they weren't considering that at the time, perhaps?
I think the issue is until you kind of freeze the footprints and know how deep your footings are, and to some of this is when you start peeling away the topsoil, you really can see what you've got, and whether it can be just ripped
Right.
as opposed to blast. Now, obviously, we will like to rip it versus blasting. Ripping, you have a whole protocol in terms of letting your neighbors know when you certain distance. So we don't know exactly. I mean, we can answer it just that way.
What do you think? I think that's a good start. What do you think, Valerie?
Yeah.
At least that, based on those investigations, we know this, we don't know
Right,
this.
that's
Okay.
right.
There won't be blasting in that area along the road because it's an open field. There's no routes to remove. There's no development in that part of the.
Right, that's what we're looking.
But
You
also
know that
including-
people are always concerned about blasting for the obvious reasons.
It's a reasonable. concern.
But also including the report.
Yeah, and then anybody who wants to has that as part of the record to review. Okay. Number 2.
So, there was a request for a side-by-side illustration of the existing topography and the proposed topography, so the visual comparison can be made pre and post construction impacts. And that was not provided.
Or
That would be really helpful.
Well, we do have a grading plan that was done for the new project. So I don't know beyond grading plan what else you would need.
Can you give any further detail, Valerie? Or-
So I think the
is
concern
is that planning?
I mean, grading plan's a very important plan.
But it sounds like that might not be
Right.
a full response to.
Right, so
comment.
I think the concern from the town board and some other boards that are been with the amount of cut and fill that's gonna take place on site, right? So if you have before, just cross section of pre and post construction, it'll give everybody a better sense of what's gonna take.
But I have a hard time figuring it out.
But what I'm hearing from the applicant is that since it's not clear where blasting would be,
Right.
and if you hadn't removed that top layer, you're not exactly sure. It wouldn't be precise. So would we be asking for kind of a concept side by side or something
That's
more?
fine, I mean, it can be a concept.
I think there's another way to look at it,
Okay,
and that is what's to be gained by having that information.
so
If we know today that this is not freeze dried, that we're going to get into construction level documents and through deeper investigation, we have a better understanding at site plan level that information would be most useful to you. To do a side by side today, quite frankly, I don't know what more knowledge you're going to have of the project more general. You know where the buildings are gonna go, whether they go down. The footings go down 2 feet, 3 feet.
I think the overall concern has always been from the village board. And this board as well was the overall impact of what's gonna take place on site in terms of the pipe and fill and the grading and how that's going to affect the neighborhood. Neighborhoods. And so that's all we're just asking. It's a simple diagram just to show that are things really going to change on site or are they not going to change as much on site as it seems based upon, this, and some of this is based off of prior submissions when you had like the 30-foot retaining wall. So again, just explain what it is that you're proposing to do.
I completely understand the desire to have clarity on the retaining wall because it backs up to the people in First and Second Avenue. And that's what led for us to redesign the whole side of the project, which led to redesigning other parts. If you get into some kind of a slicing through the project, you'd have to slice through in a lot of areas to understand what it's really going to look like. At this stage,
It's really
It's
up
like
to
a
this
make
board
work.
and if, and the town board will ultimately make a decision if they feel that there's enough information.
So personally,
That's not an answer.
I just, when you're into the topography, like I was reading some of the stormwater management manual, I can't read it all, or I can't read it all, but when they really are, they say there's an impact if you can't keep the macro and micro topography as it is, you try not to avoid it. I can't tell by looking at the documents how much that property is changing. The way it's presented, I can't.
It's going to change, it's going to change. You have to.
I know,
any-
I just want to know how.
So Valerie, what level of detail?
No, you have a grading plan. The grading plan shows exactly where things are getting regraded. It shows exactly where the stormwater basins are. It shows exactly where the roads are going. You have all of that information already. So you can't say that you don't.
So with a grading plan, is there a slice or two that would be sufficient to create
Yeah,
this
so
side?
that's, I think it was really just the idea of, you could take your grading plan and show what the grade of the site is going to be from one particular transect,
Could you
prior to-
provide or identify one or two however many transects would be sufficient and tell or speak with the applicant's engineers and then.
Right, I think even just like one transect, just across the site, just so that they get it, that there's a sense of you're moving the soil from this area to that area. But they say they're going to try to balance it as much as possible.
Dan, is that something that can be done using a grading plan? Can the transect be drawn and show?
I mean, the information is there.
The information is there.
It's a grading plan.
So is that something your engineers?
Look, if this is a big issue, we'll do we'll do one that's east-west, we'll do one that's north-south.
Is that sufficient? Okay, so I think that would be a sufficient
Let's
response.
just get past this issue.
I mean, it could be as simple as taking this site plan you have and superimposing the original contour of the property over it. That's it. Just the original contour. That way you can see exactly what was carved, what was removed, and what was flat.
Well, and I'm also,
If that's okay, I prefer to do that.
I'm gonna defer
That's
to.
fine. I think it's just a better sense of understanding.
And it sounds like that's something that the town board's gonna be very concerned when
It is.
it gets to them, so.
Yeah.
If we can identify it and address it and create the proper visual or analysis or response now, it would probably help down the road. Is that about right? Okay.
And that is something to keep in mind because after this step in the process with the FEIS, the next step is the finding statement, which is going to have to be adopted by this board as well as every other involved agency, which, will include the town board. So to the extent that we could tie up any of these loose ends now, it's just going to make the process easier as we move forward.
And in the same token, if you can just, after you superimpose the original site plan, if you can just identify the trees that are going to be.
So, I just so I understand, certainly, it's obviously, I'm having a hard time visualizing all this. when it puts the topography on, it, how are we gonna tell what the new topography is? Are we gonna do that particular thing?
Yeah, this is the developed plan, so what they're gonna do is.
I think that's already in there, because, the grading plan has to tie into the existing grades. So usually the existing contours are half tone, so that, that information should be.
It's not, it's all black and white and the grading plan is not.
It would be helpful if it's directly on this final plan, and that way we can see, what contours were changed, what was, filled. And what was removed.
And then my recollection, there was just a different lines.
Is it on
We
this?
could do a line type or we could
I
call
think
it.
these versions that were expressed by the boards that wanted to get better sense of what's.
No, I understand, but I just want to be clear, because I think what Manny is asking is already incorporated into the plans.
Yeah, this,
What may be,
Right, but
shows
that-
the old ones and the new ones, but I.
Right, you can't really.
I can't
it's
really-
So
hard to
Valerie, what you're asking
understand.
for is a cross section of that overlay one.
Yes, that's what I was originally asking, but
Okay.
if you want to take what Manny's asking for, so he understands where, like, if there's another way to show that after the site, where things are going to be reduced and where things are going to be added in terms of cut and
I
fill.
think the best way to articulate it is on the road itself, you have profiles you prepare for the roads. So that will show you the impact on the roads. And I think you're better served by the transects, because the transect can show existing and proposed grades through those particular transects. I think that's the best way to articulate graphically what you're asking for.
That
Transects as opposed to overlays.
that can also work, but
Because I think the plans already have an overlay.
Yeah, exactly.
so if it's a matter of layer, just turn it on and put a different color coded in.
That's not what he's saying.
Yeah, I think we owe it to the applicant to at least kind of nail down what we're asking for. Are we, if we're asking for two different things,
Is this what you're asking?
If that's, that seems to be the final plan, but
Yeah.
but I think
what's not clear here is
No,
what the
it's
original contour
Right.
was.
and so even if these are more clear, I don't know that even, I don't know that you might be able to. I couldn't read this and go, oh, this is 12 feet
Oh,
low.
okay.
So what Valerie's saying about a transect is you have this information, you draw a line across and you see it used to look like this and now it looks like this. So it gives a visual to the
That
reader.
that will help. That's going to be
think-
complementary to this, but I see your point now. Yes, the contour has been changed. You can see the original contour by the light lines. Now they have a different contour
Right.
going this way. These are all new.
Right.
So, yeah, so this is,
So the information is
So it's
here.
here.
This is already part
Yeah,
of
so
it. So
my
we're
point
asking.
is, obviously, that's not helping
right.
get the point across.
So I think circling back to where we started, what Valerie suggested,
Two
two
transects.
transects, would it be best if you spoke with the applicant's engineers and decided where those should go? You could look and say, this would be a good area, because I'm sure different transects would be of different value to somebody trying to
Right,
understand.
the applicant's engineer can always send us.
I think that would be the best thing to do here. Have your engineer reach out to Nelson Pope. They can agree on two transects. That side of the side can be developed. And then that can help people understand.
I mean, I really go back to what I originally said. I honestly don't know in this concept site plan level of design, what is really going to be gained by the town.
But I don't know I don't know that that is the calculus, what's going to be gained, right? I believe, and I might be wrong, that this board's allowed to make these comments and ask, and the applicant can or can't, and that we can either eventually find that it's sufficiently addressed or not. So if if this board is saying that will be sufficient for us, does it, and you can't necessarily see, and the applicant can't see what would be gained, but that will get us past this and allow you to move forward in the process. I think that'd be advantageous.
So,
But
in terms of the plan, well, for me, this is clear on what's happening with the contour. Well, the cross section on the property is probably going to be helpful for the board. The cross section is the final cross section based on this plan, and then if you can just, add contour of the original.
I understand. We do one that's longitudinal and one that's
Yeah.
horizontal. At a spot that shows as much information as we can. Great, we'll do it. you have to appreciate where my head is. We have for many, many years just said, we'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it, and not push back. And it does take a lot of time, and it's not as simple as just doing it. You have to sit down with the engineer, they have to advise, it takes a long time. It's gonna take me 2 months by the time you'll be able to turn this back.
Not to muddy the waters further, but maybe it also addresses another comment, was on the geotech work that was done. If there's some wiggle room in the selected transect, superimpose a boring. So, well, it's not, to show where the depth of rock is. I mean, I think that, I think to convey these issues, I think a graphic always does the best job. It's pretty easy to add to a transect. Just so far.
We'll try to take a quick look at them. I know we honestly keep going back. Personally, if I were in your shoes, I'd say, okay, what am I really learning? It's going to give me more data points in this project.
But the reason I asked Glenn is I think, providing all the boring logs and everything, I think isn't going to convey the issue. That just if there happens to be one board in the transect and they can see if they're cutting the filling and where that depth to rock coordinates with your overall grading plan. It just seems like a better way to help people understand what's going on.
Want to continue that? Next topic.
Sure, so,
Are we good with that one? Any ample discussion?
So 4.3 and 4.5 just deal with the heights and lines of the retaining walls, where those were comments that were asked, while the applicant did respond that the heights are no more than 8 feet now. We're just asking them to provide the length and, the details of the retaining.
Questions or that information should be available. The retaining walls have been redesigned.
Right, again, the 4.1 and 4.7, there was a lot of questions, both of them had questions on the lasting, and again, I understand that the applicant is saying it's feasible, but we're just asking for more information on, at this point in time, we must have general sense of, just the way the general construction might run, so just some sort of estimates, or if you can't provide estimates of what you're thinking that could be possible situation. I think because it's such an issue and concern from the public as well as the town board, that if we're spending a little bit more time and responding to this.
Yeah, I've given you where we are in thinking of that, and once again,
Ultimately, if that explanation you provided us is the most you're able to provide in response to the comment, that is what you're able to provide. We can ask for the moon, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. But it seems like, and I've been on other projects where blasting is a big concern of neighbors, and by extension, the town board is very concerned with it because they want to. But
every town I've ever been in where we've had to contemplate blasting, it's been a concern.
Okay.
And we're very apprised of the protocols in terms of alerting people, sending letters, doing inspections of their houses before and after. We're very clear on it, and it's a costly process. And to the extent that we can avoid it, we will. And until we start scraping away the dirt and have a better understanding of the footprints of our buildings and where they sit, this is all just complete guesswork. But if you want us just to try and expand and say just what I said,
Yeah.
I'll put that in.
I mean, you've already talked about mitigation items that you would normally do, put that in there. That's all it's asking for. In the event you're gonna blast, what are you gonna do?
We have said it.
And the other thing is that if it's not addressed here and then there's something that's considered a substantial change to the plan, it may require reopening secret. So that's all the more reason to, at least to the extent possible, even if it's hypothetically or in a future scenario, address it now so that it doesn't come back later.
I mean, it could be as simple as if your license only has a performance specs, just include it there, that way in references.
We do refer to, there are protocols. And we work with only these people who are state certified.
So that just needs to all.
So, yeah, I think then that could be added here, and that probably covers the response to several other comments as well. Okay. 5-1.
Yeah, 5-1 is just the questions were asked about some of the plantings of the infiltration and basin, whether they'll be planted, whether they'll be maintained, whether there'll be grass, turf, like, so it just additional information needs to be provided on the stormwater basin in the plan. And I understand you don't necessarily have very specific species, but there has to be some sort of concept of whether there's to be mowed or not to be mowed. Whether be native plants.
Would some of that detail already be in the SWIP?
I don't think that detail. in
Yeah.
the SWIP.
Good question. But look, our thought is that at Donna, I mean, I walked the site, Donna, with you, and you knew the name of every frickin' plant, the Latin name. And we will, at the very outset, sit down with you and go through what your thoughts are.
Well, but this is about the bioretention system. I mean. that's-
No, it's the same, whatever kind of vegetation we're talking about for that.
This is the bigger issue. It's, this is how it's gonna be maintained. It's just, there's just no information right now. So from my, but I can get that into that one, there were my comments.
I think we should continue through these,
Yes.
and then
Yep.
individual board members that comments, we can go through those.
Yes.
All right, so, some comments of 5.5 and 6.10, there were specific questions about, phases or sequences of disturbance and acres associated with each phase or sequence, and we're just asking you to provide that information. You just mentioned that a 5-acre waiver would be sought and that the project will be sequenced and not phased, but additional information would, is important for this particular project.
Why is it important? Not that it isn't important, but I'm just curious, what is the thought process? What's making you make that statement?
So I think it would be helpful to the board, for both boards to understand how construction would be. You said you have here, construction will be continuous on a site with all trade sequencing from one site location to the next. Construction will likely commence in 2 locations to include the top hill area and also the rearmost northerly portion of the site. And that's it. That's all the information we've provided. Typically, when you're looking at construction phasing, you'll say, you know, construction might start in this particular location. It's anticipated, you know, this many months. And then it'll go into that location and you'll talk about what you're planning to do first. You're planning to put the infrastructure and you're planning to do the grading. You know, so that information is usually provided so that a reader understands how the construction would be phased and you're planning to.
And I think that to the extent it can't be quantified in us now, the
Right.
qualitative explanation would
Exactly.
be helpful in what we're looking for.
And I think an important point to make on that too is if you're seeking the 5-acre variance, that the sequencing touches on the construction of the stormwater basins and perhaps utilizing this temporary construction, sediment traps during construction, because that generally would afford you some flexibility in having more area open at any given time.
So just so you understand, usually when you at site plan level, we literally as part of the documents we will submit, we'll have a staging plan, we will have
course, yes.
a material storage location defined as Dan has suggested, where we'll have a whole plan in terms of stormwater control.
But at this point, if you have a better qualitative understanding that you could, you know, expand on this response, I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, the SWIP may already touch on it.
It does.
I just need clarification on sequencing and supposed to phase it. You said it's gonna be sequence, not phase. So you have 96 units. When you're, let's say, the foundation work, all 96 foundation work, for all units. Happen in the same sequence, right? Or are you?
Well, the project will be built out in sequence. Phasing, you build a phase, you stop, you build another phase, you stop. And this will just be continuous. And you, in any of these projects that are townhouse projects, you have to start at one end. You don't jump in every bit, all your framers are all over the place, so. And what will happen is. We are working with a certain construction partner. And we do have kind of high level ideas, but it's not until you get all your plans in place. And you literally go out on the site and walk it and say, okay, we're gonna put our materials here. And how you're gonna bring your materials in phases. And you get all that understood. We're just early in that process, you know, to really, I mean,
Well, the reason
and I can answer it that way.
the reason I ask is 39% of greenhouse gas emissions in this country as of 2019 has been because of construction.
39%.
39% because of construction and the related work with that. 28% of that is because of operation of carbon. So the heating and cooling of buildings. 11% of that is from embodied carbon. Embodied carbon is you derive that from manufacture of your materials and the transportation to get it on site. So if you don't, one of the ways to, it's estimated that the embodied carbon will be greater as the years to come because more non-fossil based fuel will be used eventually for houses. Hopefully your project will consider that as well. So the reason, again, so if you manage your construction well, you would be saving on transportation, shuttling workers and deliveries as well. So I was concerned on how sequencing can abate some of these greenhouse gas emissions.
I hear you. I can only give you a very generic answer because we're just not at that stage, right now, but you know, we'll bring in the excavation people and we'll do all the excavation. It'll be an early part of it. And then we'll start bringing foundation people and we'll from one, and we may work from two spots. Don't know yet. And once the foundation's in, we start bringing framers and then the sheet, the people, carpenters to enclose, roofers, the windows, and then once it's enclosed, about 60% of the work is on the interior of these, putting in sheetrock, all the wiring, plumbing, HVAC, all of that. So about a third to 40% of the work is the exterior. Once it's closed, it becomes a quieter project too, in terms of the guys coming in and out. So,
Are you considering utilizing POEs for your houses or power or rate keeping it? For like specifically for like, what was that? It's called POE. It's power over Ethernet. I'm not sure if you've heard of that thing. But basically all the lights now, since they're low voltage, you don't use electrical wires. They use basically the same coax cables that RJ45 Cat 5 cables or Cat 6 cables that we use for the computers. That's basically what it is.
so interesting. Now I don't know anybody that's done that, but hey,
We're doing a project in
2-3 years from now, who knows what will happen?
and that's what we're looking for.
Very interesting.
It comes back on savings, but
All of these houses will be wired for electric vehicles.
and it's
Have to
really,
be.
yeah, but you're only good for 100 watts.
That's where I was leading, yeah.
All right, we are.
Are we in a good place? You understand we're asking for qualitative, whatever you can describe.
Right,
With the understanding that those real nitty gritty details come later.
We'll do our best.
I'm sure.
We're not trying to avoid, we're just,
What's the next one?
the swale maintenance.
Right,
plan.
so again, was not, information was provided, was asked for.
Okay.
Comments 6.3 and 2.11 also asked the applicant what can be done to convert birds, from unintentionally flying a large window. And we felt the response to that comment was not.
Something that's.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think we're leaving it to the owners to.
Right,
do
that's
something
what
with
they
the
said that
windows,
we're gonna
give
do.
them- give them that hazard to birds.
Because they need smarter birds.
All right, so the landscaping plan, again, the applicant said that they would be sure to have included in the final landscaping plan, a number of elements. However, the accompanying changes were not undertaken for the submission of the FDIS, and so we just said the clinical comments for landscaping plan should include more diverse plant selections, and that the additional information is required regarding proposed plantings in areas of retaining walls and associated maintenance practices. So it's one of the things that was raised by the EAC, that the retaining concerns with the retaining walls and the plantings that are proposed there. And nothing was changed between the DEIS and the FDIS. So we're just suggesting that they provide some sort of response while they're planning to address those concerns. In comment 8.8-1, Westchester County Planning Board outlined several requests for additional information regarding mitigation measures, especially dealing with the inflow and infiltration. And we're just suggesting that the applicant does respond, provide responses to these questions, and that they consult with the town engineer on those responses. Comment 12.2, ask the applicant to provide additional information on the construction sequencing, again, for the proposed project.
I think the comment we just addressed, that
Yeah.
same answer, that you refer to it, or put it there, is they're very similar, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Some of it also, some of the sequencing sounded like there was like outline for a standalone building.
Okay, so to make clear that these aren't,
Right, right,
while they, some of them to be contiguous, they're kind of building. Okay.
right. Also,
Oh, did you have something to say, Carolyn?
Well, I was just, the. Does it make sense to really expect an answer to average number of truck trips per day?
Again, my position is yes, at this point in
Okay.
time in the process, but, you know, if Len says his project is not that defined at this point. But typically applicants know, you know, have a general estimate of how much cut and fill would be, you know, needed, or the construction timing. And so construction trucks, and it's usually typically part of, you know, your traffic studies,
Right.
so. We're just answering.
Provide some information.
Right.
I remember going through it with JMC, so.
Right, so our question, so the applicant provided truck trips for the excavation phase and foundation and structural phasing, but they should provide truck trips for the remaining construction phases. So like, so at some point, like, so some of those questions say they can't tell what phasing or sequencing is taking place, but then we have truck trips for phasing and sequencing. And so we're just asking for clarification, and they identified truck trips for some of the phases that we typically find in construction, but not all the phases.
Just a quick answer, so just so you all know, I mean, the most. Truck trips are in the early stages when you're doing excavation. If there is any rock that's got to come in site. And you're bringing in the excavation team for the foundation. Once the units are enclosed or framed, then the number of personnel drops. And so
As well as trucks removing any materials from the site.
drops significantly at that point.
By any chance, have you prepared the preliminary construction schedule?
Well, that's-
Start over?
Yeah. You know, and once again, when we get to site plan level of design, that is part of the submission.
So then comments file 5 again talks about where the construction staging is, because in the EIF, they specifically for the construction staging area would likely utilize the field along Croton Dam Road for parking and construction vehicles. But this is an area that's also planned to be regraded and redesigned for stormwater management, so how, you know, again, what are the phases of, and where are the locations?
Yeah, that's a very reasonable, I think.
And then,
Do you
comment,
have a sense yet? Well, it's true, right? If you can't grade it, make it a stormwater and then park on it.
So
So
it gets into, during the course of the construction, there will be differing stormwater management efforts based on where we're excavating, where we're not excavating. And so when park construction vehicles will move around as construction is built out. And once again, this kind of detail we will provide at site.
I think all of that was for updated responses.
So I will say something to the effect that this will all be detailed and do my best, but if you understand.
no, I mean, we do expect some sort of response, not, it will be detailed in the site. No, I just want to make sure that's clear.
The answer will be something to the effect of what I just said. It's going to move around during construction
Okay.
based on the build out of the site,
But that's.
based on the phasing of the site.
It is anticipated that while parking may occur in that field, at the point at which areas of the field are turned into stormwater management practices, parking will be moved to other areas that have yet to be excavated and just, the
I
average.
understand.
But you will be saying like where those other areas are.
And Colin, he should be able to sit there, yeah, he can see. It's a site. We're walking.
17.8.
Some 17.8, again, there was a question on the design of the exterior glass panels from the 3D graphic and how it's intended to reduce heat gain during warm weather. So we didn't find the response sufficient. Comment 17.9, the applicant is also asked to incorporate heat pumps, permeable pavers, native plants, reduction mowing, etc. And the applicant responds to a reference to several energy efficient technologies planned to be implemented in the project. However, they didn't specifically address the questions that were asked.
Okay, so this should be updated to specifically address those questions. Okay.
And then 17.10, the applicant is asked to provide information on how this project is consistent with the goals of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and the applicant's response did not address that request. And then the applicant also did not address the comment in 1711, which has several details regarding the front entry building glass walls. Additionally, the applicant's response did not address plans to mitigate negative impacts on wildlife stemming from nighttime illumination for interior of the plants. Those are our comments.
So
Can I just-
oh,
Well, no, we'll move on, but then, as we mentioned earlier, it looks like some of these additional comments that need to be
Right.
addressed are potentially identical between letters. So if one response wants to be provided, you can indicate that it's responding to multiple pieces of correspondence. from the public.
There's three that are big difference.
It appears that.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, you want to move on to your comments, now, or Manny, do you want to go? Oh, should we go to traffic? So, is there, okay. Good evening, Mr. Cannon.
Good evening. So we provided you a memorandum dated March 13th. We reviewed the SFEIS, and I'll try and go through the comments briefly, pausing for you if you have comments, and hopefully we can get that off your desk. So the first item, which I think is the one that may be the biggest issue, was the school bus evaluation. The applicant was required to provide information on school bus stop locations and information on the morning and afternoon pickups. And the information, the applicant reached out to the school district and the school district didn't get back to them. So effectively, the applicant has not provided that information. It would be preferable, I guess, if the school district provided the information, but the school buses are out there every day, so the applicant could go out and observe what's going on. And the applicant's response was that school bus activity will not be impacted by construction traffic because when school buses stop and they put their lights out, everybody has to stop and construction vehicles will do likewise. And while that is true, as soon as the school bus retracts its stop sign, then vehicles traveling in the opposite direction can pass the school bus stop. And as soon as the school bus moves away from the school bus stop, the vehicles following it will also pass the school bus stop. And there may be school children walking away from the bus stop or getting into cars and the like. So I think it's important that the applicant document where school bus activity is and and what time it's at, and if there are measures that can be taken to make sure that any potential impacts are avoided, they would be identified. But in the absence of any data, it's impossible to make any conclusion in that regard. So that's the issue regarding school buses as we see it and as documented in our memorandum.
So I say I agree with everything that was just said. I want to anecdotally mention a year ago, I might not have been as concerned. I now have a 6-month-old, and now all these little things that happen in the community that I didn't pick up on, I pick up on. I live generally in this area. I stop a lot in the morning behind school buses on my way to work. So this is really important to me. I assume the rest of the board that, and if the school district isn't providing that information, it sounds like a field study is warranted. This is very important to me. And I think this is very important. There's a lot of kids that live in that area. And to the extent that trucks are backing up or going into the site and flaggers are holding up traffic and it can impact busing schedules, I think it's important to know that.
Is,
Do you have anything? Yeah.
I was just gonna ask Valerie, is there anything, that we as the board can do to ask the school? board
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
provide
we
that
do.
information?
I can try to contact June in hand, which I did with the runs the bus schedule for the school district, so I'll try to contact.
If you can
Let's
contact
do
him,
that.
maybe you can put him in touch with, would it be your engineer?
You know, I've gotten to know the superintendent pretty well, Ray, so
Can you walk
I don't know,
by?
no, this is the first time I knew that there was an issue with it. So I can just call Ray, he will pick up my,
Okay,
so I'll call Ray.
and if he doesn't, we will.
Yeah.
Then please let us know and we'll
Right
intercede.
there, Justice.
So if we can help you avoid having to do a field study to get the information, do a desktop study and analysis.
But to me, there's two questions here. One is, where is our bus stop? And the second one is, what effect our construction vehicles might have on buses? Is that,
Well, let's ask our.
is that what's being asked here? Because I'm not entirely clear.
Sure, it's primarily where the bus stops are on Croton Dam Road, what time typically the buses are there, and then, you know, what construction traffic activity will be using the road at those times, and how possibly could construction activity be modified or controlled to minimize any potential impacts. It would appear to me that the location of greatest impact would be between the access to the site and Route 9A. Because one of the other comments was the 5-ton truck limit on Croton Dam Road. And while the applicant is correct in stating that there's no structural reason for having a 5-ton truck limit, if you go to the west end of Croton Dam Road, it's very steep and it's very windy. And it would be preferable, in my opinion, that construction activity came in from Route 9A and then just go down Croton Dam Road and go into the site. So that's the reason why construction traffic activity, I think, will be concentrated on the eastern end of Croton Dam Road. And that's why we should be looking at that location just to make sure that we know what's currently going on there. And if there's anything that we can do to minimize the potential impact of construction traffic, then let's do it.
In terms of a bus stop, I don't think we're gonna have any children, school-age children.
No, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is really during construction. It's a temporary condition and it's probably 18, 24 months long. And we want to make sure that that it goes off without any incidents. So we need to understand the metrics that are out there. I'm sure we'll work to find a way, but without any data, it's hard to say that this will not have a significant adverse impact.
Mr. Kenning, once the applicant, if he's able to get that information from the district, the stops, the times, and is able to kind of draft up a response, is that something you could look at and determine if it's sufficient to address your concerns?
Yes, I believe so.
I think that would be good. This is very important to me. I will die on this hill, I think.
So then there is no issue regarding us having a bus stop? Because I didn't hear it.
I don't believe there's an issue regarding you having a bus stop. This is post-construction. I don't anticipate that you will have school children, but if you do have a school child that's in there for some reason, and I don't want to get into the specifics of age restricted, but from the school district's perspective, they would be obligated to transport that child and they would have to stop on Croton Dam Road, presumably at the driveway, like they would do for any other school child.
So you do want us to answer that then?
My concern is during construction. I think post-construction, the school district will deal with it like it deals with any other residents in the community. So I don't see.
Answer it just that way.
Okay, so that's the school bus issue. The next comment was that the applicant was asked to obtain accident data from the New York State Department of Transportation in addition to the Village Police Department. The applicant obtained that data, analyzed it, and provided a report on it in the SDEIS. So that addresses that comment unless any of the board members have questions.
Nope. But they're ready.
Okay, then the next issue was a request to revise the trip generation and trip distributions for the project based on current traffic patterns and the latest version of the trip generation manual. The applicant undertook the trip generation revisions and trip generation distributions and revised the traffic study to reflect that. So if there's any questions on that. The next comment, the applicant was asked to revise the analyses to reflect the latest edition of the Synchro software, which evaluates traffic. And the applicant replied that the latest revision will give the same results as the previous revision. And we checked into that and that is correct. So there's no need to revise to the latest revision.
Great.
The next comment was that the project would increase queuing on northbound Croton Dam Road at Route 9A, and the applicant was asked to explore mitigation measures to reduce the impacts of the project. And the applicant has proposed to install a do not block the box sign and to provide striping at the intersection of Croton Dam Road with Kitchewan State Road to reduce queuing blocking that intersection during peak periods. So that was the response to that request. The next comment was the applicant was asked to ensure that acceptable site distances would be provided at the site driveway, and the applicant has confirmed that the existing walls adjacent to the site driveway are to be relocated to improve site distance at the driveway. The next comment is the sidewalk comment. It's a two-part comment, actually. The applicant was asked to add sidewalks and crosswalks along.
Sorry.
Yes.
One of the board members has a question on the previous.
Yeah, on the
comment.
site distances, I see your comment that you're asking that the SEIS also, or the FEIS also indicate that the applicant will remove or clear the vegetation. Is that something you're still recommending?
Yes, no, that goes hand in hand with the construction of the wall. And it will, I presume, it's typically addressed as part of the site plan issue. So when they come in for a permit to modify the driveway, the town engineer will review the plans to make sure that the sight lines are provided. That will include moving the wall and any vegetation that might block sight lines.
Okay.
Pardon me for running quickly over that. The next comment was to add sidewalks and crosswalks along certain areas and to indicate if on-street parking will be permitted internal to the project. The applicant has stated that on-street parking will be permitted internal to the project, and that they will determine that as part of the site plan process and based on observations as the project moves forward. And regarding the sidewalks, they have stated that sidewalks, to the extent possible, will be incorporated during the site plan phase of the review process. So Kimley Horn is not opposed to this. Typically, sidewalks are part of a site plan issue regardless. And at this point, you're considering whether the application is likely to have a significant adverse impact on the environment. So the question, I guess, that's posed to the board at this point in time is, does the board feel it's necessary to review the location of sidewalks internal to the project now, or can it wait until the site plan review process?
In my opinion, that can, does everyone agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. The next comment, the applicant was asked to revise the trip generations for the alternatives using the latest edition of the trip generation manual, and the applicant did that. The next comment regards the 5-ton weight limit on Croton Dam Road. As I indicated, and as the applicant has stated correctly, local deliveries are permitted along Croton Dam Road. Our recommendation would be that the applicant commit to using the eastern end of Croton Dam Road to and from Route 9A to access the site, so that heavy trucks won't be going down that windy, steep portion of the road at the west end of the corridor. So if the applicant has concerns about that, we'd be happy to discuss them, but I don't think there are.
Is that something that could be stated in the document?
Yes.
The next comment, the town board indicated that it would like to see improvements to the Route 9A intersection with Croton Dam Road that were proposed as part of the previous proposal, and the town board would like to see those reincorporated into the project. The applicant has responded that the age restriction on the project means that the units will be sold to older empty nester audience, and that the traffic study has indicated that there will be less traffic and it will have an imperceptible impact as composed to the former use of the site. They have indicated that they will make the improvements to Kitchewan and Croton Dam Road, installing the stop sign and the striping at that location. And they also indicated that the word is may be amenable to town-led and managed traffic improvement district for this intersection that solicits and or imposes fees on a pro rata basis from the surrounding uses. So basically what the applicant is saying is that their traffic study indicates that this project does not impact significantly traffic operating conditions at that intersection. They're proposing to make the signing and striping improvements, and that they may participate in any improvements that the town should generate on its own. If that is correct, the applicant can confirm that. If it's not correct, I could be corrected.
Correct. Yeah. Most of the traffic comes from the east side of that intersection, or north-south, in peak morning time, so it's not going to be from us.
So I did have a question on this. So in your answer, you said that the applicant would be willing, but you're saying may be willing, just a difference. But I did, when I read this, I didn't understand what this means, what the fair share fees, like how does that work?
Sure. So sometimes an improvement measure is identified for an intersection that one individual or one entity can't pay for. And sometimes what happens is the town will commit to getting that improvement implemented, but it will turn to a number of projects that may be before it. So let's say there are 4 developers before it, And it will say, we're going to apportion the cost for this improvement to each of you developers, and we'll apportion the cost based on the amount of traffic that each of you puts through it. And that's how it can be done. I've oversimplified it a little bit because the devil is in the details about how much traffic we're putting in and how much traffic is already there and how much responsibility the town bears for its own portion of the traffic. But basically, that's what it is. It's an improvement that's identified and the cost of which is shared by a number of entities based on the volume of traffic each of them puts through the intersection.
Thank you.
I would add that, I was advised by the town that the state is presently involved in a study
Yep.
with respect to 9A. And among other things, this intersection, so. There's really nothing. to do.
I'll add that this is a tough intersection, independent of the project being proposed.
Right.
I live in the area, I have to deal with it. It's
Okay.
not good, so that resonates to me. No, it should, the burden, if there's going to be further improvements, that the idea of sharing it with other developers.
Could you try again?
I'll say it again.
Does that address all of the Kimley Horn comments?
That does address all of the Kimley Horn comments. Thank you very much.
So it sounds like the main one is the school bus study, and if you have, you can get that information and put that together, you can see if it suffices. ultimately.
Yes, that's my opinion.
Also stating clearly that the trucks are beginning to be mined.
Yes, that's what we were also talking, so. Is that an appropriate component now, Valerie?
Yes, so I think in terms of those things, we can just add them generally to the SFEIS that they would be willing to undertake as mitigation.
We don't know if the applicant would be, so.
Yeah,
the truck
yeah.
has-
Okay.
obviously, the devil's in the details, I would suggest.
Okay, but it sounds like if that,
The truck wants to go down.
no.
Second.
No.
Okay. Can we release Mr. Cannon or should he stay on?
No, I think.
Release me, please.
Release, thank you for your time this
And,
evening.
happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much. The same to all of you.
Okay.
Is it Friday?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good evening, good night.
Good night.
We have two sets of comments left, one from Manny, one from Donna, who would like to go first.
Don't
Don't. Does everybody have those comments?
I do think it's a site plan comment, but I just think it would be good to indicate this, that this is gonna be addressed in the site plan. For 1B, 2A.
Meet the music.
Yes. I don't think that, I think there
These
should
are
be.
people that only listen to Beethoven. Wow.
So I live right behind an Alzheimer's unit and I have to listen to karaoke. So. I think there should be, I think it's just a reasonable thing to have it, instead of waiting for neighbors to complain, to have something stated. And that you're gonna address it in the site plan.
I mean, there are noise ordinances. I don't know if we legally can go beyond a noise ordinance. I don't know how to answer this. It's unlikely that this profile of buyer, although they could be into karaoke,
It should be.
but other than that. I don't know. I mean, the other thing I would say is these houses are all going to be, you know, contemporary homes with plenty of insulation, with insulated glass.
Now, I believe we're talking about the pool. The pool specific.
Oh, it doesn't say.
Yeah, no, so I just read the comment myself. I'm looking at the comment was, what type of buffering would be installed to attenuate the sounds and visibility of the pool? So I think Donna's just speaking to,
Cool.
will there be, you know, the pool's open until midnight and people blast music to midnight. With the understanding that is not what's gonna happen, but would it be amenable to add something with,
Happy to, I totally understand that. Right.
by the road, it's a community building?
Yeah.
Neighbors. Okay. Donna, next.
You could probably write it into the HOA, but don't quote me now.
Okay,
Not-
well, just that we're addressed, that it's going to be addressed.
Yep.
Um. I think Valerie was start.
Did Valerie's memo address 1B6?
Right,
Yeah, to Donna, to the extent you think it's already been addressed.
yeah, I'm just.
You can just take that, and we could,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah, I do. I talk about 1B6.
okay.
Yeah.
good.
okay, but D was definitely not it. 1B60.
Right, so this particular, let's talk about this. So I think part of what I was hoping that the applicant would do, that they did do some wetland investigations, that they
Mhm.
summarize the investigations that they have done. And there is a section of the area that they're proposed, that they've identified along First and Second Avenues that they're proposing not to build on.
Right.
That they can probably bring that information in, and then if there are further investigations that are needed during site plan approval, then those can be identified. But I agree with you, Donna, like none of that information was in the response, and all that information should be in the response to show like what they've analyzed up to this point. And then if there is some additional work that needs to be done, then that can be done during like site plan.
The only problem I have with that though is if they haven't tested that area and it is lower lying than the wetlands, which would. I mean, just logically, if we get, 5 inches of rain and it's lower lying, that's gonna get inundated. So if it hasn't been, analyzed and Yeah, we don't know.
Water plan, Don, it does address it.
it states that was analyzed.
The stormwater plan shows, essentially a concept drainage plan. And it does address that.
Noting that the soils were tested for hydrologic, so.
We had a wetland scientist walk the entire site.
Right, so that's why I think it would, right, and I think it would be good if. When you, in your response, you describe what information was. Was already conducted, what information you have in those areas, and provide those details.
Because you do state here that you're one possible solution to this size of the retaining wall is that you're gonna put gravel in it.
Yeah,
So if it's.
and I'm
lower
sure the
lying than the
people in
wetland-
first and second would be thrilled to have something that is attractive and drains well, as opposed to today. And it's
As-
awful
But my
today.
issue is it going to drain or is it going to dam?
No, absolutely. It's
If
gonna
you're gonna,
drain.
if
No,
you're filling
the
up the
site-
gravel. So yes, I want more information.
We will definitely,
And it, I hope you see that it's noted that plant that there is not an invasive. The plant that's there is not an invasive,
not
it's
invasive.
not invasive.
Oh, okay.
It's a high value, high wildlife value plant. That's usually in wetlands, so that's what you may concern us. So I would like more information. So response, B7C was just clarifying why they asked the question. So 13. I think Valerie addressed that.
Yeah.
One B7,
14,
right to 14.
no,
Yeah.
B7, you gave the kind of an
Yeah.
info comment, and then, so I'm just addressing what their rationale was, which I thought was pretty obvious. So B14, 15 Valerie addressed, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so 16, if you're gonna address it this way, you have to say that that's your opinion. I just, that a retaining wall is more secure than a natural hillside. That's definitely your opinion, because the hillside's been there since the geological event that created it, so it's,
but I'm trying to better understand. I mean, retaining walls are
they're not,
commonplace throughout Westchester
yeah, but
County.
you're saying they're more secure than the
I
hillside,
know, but, okay,
that's your opinion.
so you just want us to say opinion.
I want you to state your opinion, and then I think that it should be addressed. We've had retaining walls collapse. So.
How
Has
would
there
you like us
been,
to address that?
has the bedrock been analyzed where you're doing the retaining walls?
We don't know if there's bedrock in that entire length, if any, in that entire length. And until we start getting in there and doing.
Well, there's gonna be bedrock, it's just how deep it is. Well,
No, it could be a spread footing,
okay.
but look, these are engineers who, last thing they want to be is liable for a retaining wall that 10 years from now fails.
But it has happened.
I know it
In the town,
does, but
too.
these are sophisticated engineers. It's all gonna get tied back with tying rods. If necessary, it may not be necessary.
I don't know, does anybody else have a concern with this? With the retaining walls going up on without knowing?
They're not gonna go out without.
And ultimately, they'll need a building connect to the roads. So,
Right.
Okay, so
We're
you're
gonna look at the
feeling
loads
that
of
this will be,
buildings.
this will be a site plan issue, is that what is this the feeling?
so, yeah, we show on the site plan, but the actual, there'll have to be detailed calculations provided at the time they pull a building permit to the roads.
Then a permit wouldn't be approved until all those calculations are vetted and approved and the walls are ensured to be sufficient.
Yeah.
But I think that won't happen when the other collapse, so that's my concern is that it's right by these little houses.
No, I don't know that any property owner can be required to insure something in perpetuity. I'll let Christie opine on that, but I would expect that it would be in the best interest of those living in the development of an HOA.
Well-
They'll be insured, they'd be in their interest to make sure those walls are inspected. I don't know if is that a requirement of the town, like certain?
If it's on their property and it's, you know, if it's their responsibility, which it would be if it's on their property, I mean. It needs to be maintained, and if it collapses, it's the responsibility of the property owner, but there are a lot of safeguards in place that before we even get close to that point. Glenn was talking about it, Dan was talking about it, you know, for retaining walls, there's going to be a lot of review on that to make sure that they are done in a secure manner.
Okay, because it'll be very close to, homes, that's for sure. So I guess in the least, I would definitely request that you put, that it's your opinion that the retaining walls are safer than the natural hill.
And Donna, we start by looking
It
at
is
the
your
loads that are
opinion,
gonna
that's
be
my-
there and design for those loads.
I think I'll just put, I think
In your
we
opinion,
have it in a couple other sections, a couple of responses.
Let's just say, it.
yes. Okay, and I think we addressed this before, B17.
Yes.
Um, okay, If it lost me, now it lost the C's. I think you addressed this. I think you addressed that.
Yeah.
So it's over to 9. Would you address this? I think you addressed that, not right? C29?
No, 298 and 299.
For sustainable construction, that's the comprehensive plan.
Did we answer 2-4?
Yes.
Um, yeah, so my comment was is that you didn't address, the gas heating or you addressed here, is this the one that you put in? Right. Yeah, so you said energy efficient appliances and you answered a lot of these things, but you didn't answer everything. So you didn't address that you're gonna. I mean, you haven't addressed, are you gonna use gas heating or are you gonna go electric? That's not responded in here.
We don't know exactly yet, in terms of stovetops, we're definitely gonna go with the
Right,
rate,
that's-
the induction. Yeah.
With the gas heating, it's just a lost opportunity, because we're trying to get away from all that.
There's debate as to whether that's better than electric. In terms of generation cost.
Well, I believe we're talking about the comprehensive plan, so we're just addressing things that are in there. So I just feel we haven't fully answered that with the comprehensive plan.
So you're asking that there be an expansion to the extent details are known about certain elements within building envelopes or any further detail? Is that what we're
A
asking
lot of
for?
questions here.
Yeah, because you have a lot of things that you're addressing, but it's not the overall picture is that you're not going to be meeting the goals of the town or the state if you're not addressing the gas heating.
You can reread it, I don't. So is that so we're on 2-9. right?
Yes, and you have a very long answer.
There's a lot of
Right.
questions there. Like trees and stormwater system, eco service has not been analyzed, risks of birds. I think the birds question, let's kind of work backwards. I think the birds question is in Valerie's.
That will be. we can
Okay,
talk
so
more
we'll
about that
answer it in
in
Valerie's, okay?
12.
And then the gas heating, you want us to address the counties and state goals and
Yeah, either state that you're planning to do it or you're not. You're planning to use gas or not. I think that should be abundantly clear.
and then and that kind of ties into renewable energy. Is that a similar
Yes.
question?
The local renewable energy goals.
In addition to the gas question?
That is the one that I'm looking.
I know, but it's 2 questions. I want to separate the questions so that we can answer them.
Okay,
So is the renewable aspect of that energy goal question, the renewable piece of it, what you want us to address?
yes.
And can you just expand on that a little bit so we understand?
Well, I'm just, I guess. I don't know how to verbalize this, but, we have state goals and town goals about becoming sustainable. And then you're proposing you have this perfect opportunity to be part of that, because it's gonna take you a couple years to build it, and it's gonna last a long time. And it's not gonna meet those
But
goals.
so as the renewable aspect, what would you like? What, if you could be me, what would you like it to be?
Electrified buildings.
Electrified.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what you,
Yeah.
but that's not really renewable energy. So
Okay, so I think we're deviating a little from the
But I'm
productive
just, I
dialogue.
think he should state that he's not, he said he's addressing the gas issue by saying he has electric stoves.
I don't know, I don't know, I think,
now we're going to expand on your question regarding gas versus electric.
Okay. And that's
But
good.
the renewable, gas is not, electric's not a renewable energy source.
Right, our source in this town is renewable. Our electric source is renewable. Yeah.
So are you suggesting, are we gonna have solar panels? Is that the question?
No, our electric source was green energy. In the town.
That's what
If
you
he does
want to
sustainable
achieve.
rest, if you do stuff.
so then if he's pulling from our grid, wouldn't it be sustainable if he's pulling the same electric? And I'm asking, I don't know the answer.
I know I'm unsustainable, so.
Right, but if you don't have to be able to see.
Right. But the goal is it's like 2050, it's just not addressing it, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so you'd like the applicant to address these questions and whether or not those
Right.
components are gonna be included, and if they're not,
Just to
that's,
be unambiguous.
I think, if you know the answers to the questions, whether or
I'm
not.
not.
Isn't there
what we
clear
want
on the
here?
Question is where I
Isn't
want
the
to, not
whether
sure.
or not your part is sustainable, that's just up to the individuals.
Yeah.
So it's not something.
I'm just saying, he's
You can
asking, he's saying that
address.
he's meeting all the comprehensive plan goals, and I don't know if he is. So, I mean, it's up to you, I'm one person on the board.
Well, hold on, I just wanna, the response says the plan's goals, objectives, and strategies include a number that are relevant to the project. I don't know if they affirmatively state or the applicant states that he is meeting every goal. If he is, that would be something we'd request it added to, if that's an affirmative statement. But if you're asking that just more detail be provided as to gas heating, gas pipeline, are these in reference potentially to the state and renewable energy goals, which ones are met, which ones aren't? Is that what we're looking for, more
Yeah.
detail? So I think that's what we're looking for, questions.
Yeah, actually, was that the last time you had?
No.
Oh, that's 2-9, I haven't finished, we don't need.
No, no,
You have something in there?
no, go ahead.
So 211 and 212, which Valerie did address, but not to the extent that I would be happy with. Let me just see your response. Yeah, so it seemed to me that you're putting, if something happens, if there's bird strikes, which they definitely will be with those big windows, that it would be left to the resident to address it. And
Well, we will address it further when we have some thoughts.
okay, so that- if you could put that in there, because, you know, you have said, over and over again, how these people that you're catering to are not gonna be doing the landscaping, they're not gonna, you know, they're going there to get away from all that stuff. I don't see how they would be, it'll be the landscapers that are dealing with these birds, and I just think it's the wrong, it needs to be handled in the design stage.
Okay. I mean,
Because the design stage is a little later then, right? We're still in seeker land. So
Right.
what is
but this-
sufficient? Are we asking that the applicant state that they would be the ones to put stripes and something on the windows?
Yes, that's part of.
But I don't
the
know if
site plan.
that's something that this applicant could agree to, or is that something you would consider?
stripes. I
The-
think it's, yeah. I mean, some people use these nylon filaments. You know, across so that the bird is, you know, hits the filament, it doesn't get hurt. But
But it can't be left to the residents to do it, so I'm just, what I meant, you have an answer here that says the inhabitants of such prone buildings would naturally be concerned with such a situation arise and would, in the applicant's opinion, take corrective measures accordingly, and I just think that
so I guess
you're leaving it.
I
for
would look
the
at it
residents.
another way. Is this something you feel is like a real chronic problem?
It absolutely,
And that you think that it's even,
it absolutely,
that's uniform people? I mean, I don't know,
You know,
You know,
that's happens.
contemporary design,
Yeah.
and he would know as well as anybody. Who's looking for bigger window walls. People want
I
more
don't have
light
big
in the
windows and I've had bird suppression, I have put decals for windows. So, I mean, it does happen in Manhattan, they're scraping them off the ground all the time, so it's, you're at the very high place, it just seems like it should be, the acceptable answer to this would be that it would be addressed in the site plan. The corrective measures would be addressed in the site plan.
And look, we're willing to listen to you, Donna. You feel very strongly about it. We appreciate that.
So instead of
We'll
saying
listen
that.
to you
it would
at
be
that point.
addressed, we would take that out and would say it would be addressed, if you agree, it would be addressed.
We can
The
say,
time of site. plan.
but we'll add a little more here in terms of ideas.
But that also sounds like a good, you know, since this is the board's document, ultimately, it sounds like that's what Donna would like our response to be.
As long as you agree with that.
Yes.
So, so you're saying that you're gonna give us the wetland consultant's report?
Yeah.
So that what, where they did.
I believe you got it all. It's been an attachment.
But it's not in this, is it?
Get go.
It needs to be in this.
So the applicant can incorporate everything that was in the draft environmental impact statement by reference. So if it was part of the SDIS, that may be why it's not in that actual document.
You're okay with us referring to it?
It's one of the options under secret.
This is document's gotten pretty voluminous. Right.
I think that would be- okay, now we're getting to 5. Yeah, so Valerie did address quite a bit of this, that there's not enough information. I gotta say, to have, you are putting a very, I would say contemporary structure up, and then to have this giant grass lawn, it's this, this is something that's really, I just feel like there could be other things to do that would be more productive and more beneficial to the environment. So I did look through that stormwater manual, design manual, and there's so many things that can be done. Disconnecting roofs and putting in all different kinds of stuff. So I think I need more information on this, which Valerie did say that we needed.
Are you referring to the
The big swell.
swales, or are you referring to the units, the lots themselves?
The big, when you go
Yeah,
down
the front-
Stoughton, and then you're gonna see this massive lawn.
Which is today,
That's the existing condition. though.
I know, but but it also has a lot of trees that you're taking down.
not in the front lawn, there's none, there are no
On
trees.
the property.
No, but I think
What are we talking
maybe we're
about?
talking about two different things, right?
Just saying environmental impact, like you could make up for a lot of the environmental impact by making this a more environmentally friendly solution. This could be the place where you make up for all the other stuff.
But if you're suggesting plantings and things, but does that align with what the SWIFT needs this area for so? I want to just make sure
I
everybody's.
think it's an interesting thought, Donna, I think it's not a bad thought, quite frankly, put in some trees in there.
Yeah, just do something to make it more beneficial than just a
I mean-
road lawn.
I think you can put them around the perimeter, maybe to comply with the state range, you can't be putting them in the middle. of the-
No, not in the middle, but
It's
you
an
could also
interesting
make
thought,
it, you
Donna.
could also take some of that load of the water away from there by doing some of the other measures. Like permeable pavement. There's many different
Yeah.
things that could be done that would make less of this, of the need of that area.
understand.
It's such a huge unit.
Look, I don't like paved surfaces. I think it makes it look suburban. To the extent we could have some areas that might be side parking areas that have pavers, just like you say.
You talk about great grass screen pavers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those two emergency access points, one coming off of Croton Dam Road, one coming off of Narragansett. That's what those are.
Yeah.
To the extent we can add them, happy to do it.
So if that would be great if you could include that, but you
Okay.
would consider
Look at-
during the site plan review, some additional stormwater measures. And planting trees in the town. That'd be great.
I mean, we do have, in some of our concept drawings, birches. White birches. and they're
What do you have?
White birches,
Or white birch trees?
birch trees.
Oh. So you probably want to go with river birch, but we can discuss
River
that.
birches,
at-
that would be
at
river
site.
birches.
Yeah, remember,
What's the
The white
Latin name
birch
for it?
being a-
Want to know?
Like everything else.
5.2.
Did Valerie address that? I did not. Oh. Oh, but I thought also the county also mentioned this about using the water for landscape, which like capturing water. Water retention. Didn't the
We,
county also
we,
address that?
I'm sure the county would want, I think they do, I think they
Right.
do.
So is that
I don't
something
know how to
you
answer
can address?
that.
Could you address that in the
Yeah,
site plan?
Can, okay, I don't remember.
I remember it wasn't just in there.
Does that like go into cisterns, Dan, do you know?
Rainwater capture.
I mean, again, I think it's too, it's one thing to do it at somebody's house, where they have rain barrels and stuff like that, but I suppose you could try and do something where you put in like a pump pit adjacent to the pond. And then you pump out of that for irrigation, put in a vertical piece of perforated pipe, something it. That's couple of soil percolation. You might be able to put something.
So is it
But
just,
this is, it's being more of a site plan issue.
well, that's what I'm saying, is that it would address it in the site.
Yeah. It's a good, interesting point.
Do 5.7.
I think that was already addressed.
Yeah. 6.1.
That's already addressed. So
Okay.
it's
6.3.
3, now we're on 6. Yeah, I just think for a matter of clarity that it would be great if you could, there's just stated that the number of mature trees, which are 6 to 40 inches in DBH, but those be removed.
I think that's a fair ask and something I'd like
Yeah,
to
I
say.
think we have to- I
That
think that's
clarifies
hard to
the
do.
response. And it is, with those are the facts, what's being removed and what's being removed.
I mean, many of those are not healthy. I mean, that's the reality of the site. They haven't been maintained.
I think, Don, are you okay if the applicant wants to add that a number of the trees on site are not healthy and will be replaced by younger but healthier trees, or no, you don't? I'm just trying, I think everybody.
It's in the.
I think that's a requirement of the code. That if certain trees don't survive, that they have to be replaced with a better version.
The replacement should equal the DBH of what was 50%. 50%.
Yeah, so but here, so it looks like you're replacing, you're planting 450 trees.
No, I think what the applicant's saying is
No, I do
he wants to
understand.
make clear that these aren't necessarily 443 healthy trees, and that's fair. I think that's
So
a fair.
you can put a note saying that.
Well,
not
the
all-
quality of the tree too. Some of these are,
So I think expand it with the qualification on your side and then their qualification on that.
But some of the trees are large diameter trees that are not going to be totally replaced.
69.
Yes, I'm asking that also this would be a site plan issue, that would come up, but that you would, in this answer here, would indicate that that the invasive plants are going to be continually controlled and that an ongoing landscape maintenance plan agreement will be required. And that has happened in several recent projects. So just stating that that's going to be addressed in the site.
I will give something to them.
Okay. So we did say it was going to address it in the site plan.
No, I think Donna just wants that to be added to this response.
Right, because there's several residents and the EAC that have been addressing the invasive. plants. So if it's clearly,
So people know that it's not being pushed aside, it'll.
right,
happen
and that
later
there's
in the
going to be an
process.
ongoing.
Okay.
maintenance plan.
All right, 6:13. Oh, sorry.
And although the problem is that once the HOA takes over. Yes,
Well, it was
no,
leverage. But it's, no, but the leverage would be that this landscape maintenance plan is something that the HOA would have to, just like the retaining walls. They're gonna have to maintain the retaining walls. Even though we're an HOA.
We're gonna need an agreement. We're gonna have to see the HOA agreement. That's gonna be a condition of any approval.
Okay, so that-
Okay.
okay.
And it'll have to be approved by the Attorney General's office. It'll have to be, you know, we'll have to sign off on it. It'll have to be recorded against the property. So absolutely, all of that will be taken care
6:13,
That we already did.
great.
Now it's 6:12 and 6:14. Yeah, so it'd be great if you could just be really clear on this. So you have my comments there, right? Glenn? So could you just state that? That it'll be part of the site plan, but all of this stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
makes sense.
And then what we did for your information in the previous project is the town's tree warden came and just, we gave them just an area that they could just verify. So they didn't have to verify all 400 trees, but they could just verify.
You see, yeah.
A portion was actually the Rinaldi project. We did.
We're not gonna do it on St. Patty's Day for sure.
I actually think this was something we discussed previously. I think the town code,
I think the town code covers it.
Yeah.
whatever it allows, right?
Yeah.
Christine? In terms of when construction can take place?
of. Oh, yeah, yes, there are hours of operation.
We-
The problem with that is there's been other developments that we definitely said they couldn't work on Sundays. I mean, they're allowed to work on Saturdays and Sundays, but I believe that is because it's a general code and that homeowners need to be able to work on their day off, but other developments, we have definitely had it Monday through Saturday.
I wasn't on those, I can't speak.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's only fair for the sanity of the neighbors not to have to deal with 7 days a week.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna defer to the town attorney if we can impose a requirement, or if this is the appropriate time, or what we should do here.
We definitely have in the past.
I mean, we have an opportunity. We can look at the code and see what the code says. I don't have it up right now. I can bring it up, but I think that's something that we can talk about. Obviously, we're not at the site plan stage. But you know, I think that if the applicant would be willing to work with the town, obviously the requests have to be reasonable. But
And this would be a site plan issue.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think, it's, so you're raising the point now, Donna, but I don't think
Well,
that
because
changes
here.
the,
It's right here, so
well, the response.
the response is saying that they're gonna work
I mean,
on holidays.
so the question is the response something that makes you think that there is going to be a significant adverse impact on the environment? Right? That's what you're looking at right now in terms of secret. And I think that's what the applicant's been trying to say is that, you know, this is a process. And so what we're looking at now versus what we'll be looking at in 4 or 6 months, you know, presumably when we're looking at a site plan, is a different story. But the code and the town board have certainly contemplated, you know, protecting neighbors from construction during unreasonable times and noise during unreasonable times. And if the planning board wanted to put additional restrictions on that as part of its site plan approval, we could talk about that. But it has to be, you know, within the realm of reason. So that's something we would have to look at a little bit more closely.
I think it's site plan. I think this response is perfectly reasonable. It says this is the rule according to the town.
Okay,
The applicant isn't binding himself. He's not saying declaratively they will work on Sunday, and we can discuss it at site
okay,
plan.
so let's be, because I know Jim was requiring.
I would be on board with it, but I think it's about when that's appropriate to discuss.
Perfect.
But it's good that you raised it now.
It's just really, Donna, it's whether complying with the town code is something that you consider an adverse environmental impact. Like that's what we're talking about right now.
I just, my other goal, but Jason's saying that they're answering this as to the code. My other goal for this review is to make it that this document is accurate.
Of course, absolutely.
Ambiguous.
So I think there's a distinction between accurate and complete, right? Because this is an evolving process, and that's a theme that's come up a lot this evening. So, you know, what we may be dealing with right now needs to get this board to the point where you may feel comfortable saying, I don't think there's the potential for any significant adverse environmental impacts that cannot be mitigated to the greatest extent practicable. And then it goes to the town board, and then if it makes it back to you, then you look at the site plan issues, and then obviously that continues the process. So that's the theme of your review right now.
Okay. So 17.6, this is actually where I saw where you were mentioning that you have the gas range tops. And the comment was that the proposed project needs to use gas. So that reference. was-
No, I think you're right. That's not a response to the comments.
Right.
We're gonna look into it.
Okay, thank you.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. I think, Valerie, you addressed 17.
We did, but I did 17.9 through 12.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Good. 17, 14, 17, 16.
okay, so let's go to 17, 14.
Renewable energy sources and solar energy. This is a Nelson Pope fund.
Right.
Solar should be offered as an upgrade, as the applicant looked into clean energy standards offered by NYSERDA. Please discuss what, if any, part of the program is being considered. If not, what is the program we're considering? The reference is C response to 17.5. And the response to 17.5 says the applicant is studying the use of solar panels and the unit designed to allow for the inclusion either during initial construction or subsequent installation. This may include additional roof structure to handle the weight of panels. So are we looking for them to affirmatively state at this point if solar is
On the table?
what's the ask, I guess, what's our ask? Like
Well, I
that
guess
is, say,
it
what would
just-
what would a full response be in our opinion?
This was 14, when I'm very lost. Hold on.
Yes, it would be solar panels.
Is it still possible or?
You know, I mean, solar, we've looked at solar so many different directions, you know, and it doesn't necessarily pencil out in terms of cost savings, in terms of all of that. A lot of it depends on use patterns. To put in solar panels, certain ones are heavy, you have to beef up the structure a little bit, so a lot of considerations that go into it, so it's.
And not all the units will be appropriate for solar.
All of that exactly right. It's
So
very, it's not an easy question.
I feel like it's
up. The roof will be pretty exposed.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got most with these little, they look like shingles.
Nobody's buying those.
Nobody's buying
I
them.
haven't seen that marketed in years. It's a cool idea.
No idea.
And they started doing them until they figured out they had to redo roofs to support them.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, so,
So I
So
think,
they're-
but
it's good it was good marketing, so.
no, I think, what the question asked is not just for the solar, they're talking about solar, but then they're asking, the clean energy standards, so I don't know.
So then maybe we want a fuller response, so if the applicant hasn't looked at the clean energy standards, perhaps state that if the applicant would like to look at that and see if anything else in there could
Yes.
become part of a fuller answer.
Yes, just
I think we're looking for a fuller answer and not either a reference to the earlier answer and then more discussion or just a fuller answer here. Is that fair, Don?
yes, and then,
Right.
then 16, we already addressed.
Hey, we're done us.
Mhm.
Yeah, most of the items I have, we talked about, I'm probably just focusing on sustainable infrastructure, particularly the solar panel, but we beat it to a pulse, like I believe. But there's also one more thing about the New York State Energy Conservation Code, which you spoke about in response to 9. Yeah, the New York State Energy Conservation Code is not a choice, it's a requirement. But there's also, and it's good that you're going for that, and you mentioned you may exceed. Do you have those comments?
I do,
Okay.
I didn't print them.
Yeah, and you mentioned you may exceed, but that's actually the goal, to exceed the baseline of the New York State Energy Conservation Code.
It was 2.9.
Yeah, it's 2.9.
And one of them deals with the thermal building envelope. Which you addressed it in the report, but except you mentioned using two glass pane window, two pane window. That technology has been out for about almost 70, 80 years at least.
Versus,
We now have two pane window panel, which is superior energy transference control than the two pane. So I was wondering if that's something that you looked into. Let's do that.
we're gonna use metal frame windows, not vinyl frame windows, we're gonna use our architectural metal frame.
They still have two pane window panels with metal frame. Yeah, that's yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the other, yeah. I mean, the solar panels, you could offset the cost by maybe reducing the slight reduction in size dimension. I mean, how much are you building a unit now? Anticipation, $300, $400 per square foot. Construction cost?
No construction. Yeah, it's gonna be somewhere around 300, 300 construction, but then the question is what's in that number?
Yeah, but so your site cost as well, you're probably, that's probably gonna be bumped up to probably.
But it comes down to, we've looked into this a lot, and a lot of its use pattern. If some of these are the cohort, the profile is going to be somebody that they want to buy these units because they want more flexibility to travel. And so when their unit is not occupied, it will be at a lower temperature. And so we just don't know. There's just too many. And then there's an aesthetic issue too. They aren't necessarily aesthetically, pleasing.
What?
They're getting better.
You're getting there, you're right, you're getting there, especially with this ones.
So we don't know. And then it also comes down to the battery technology, the ability to store it too.
Well, the thing is, you don't need the battery to be sustainable. All you need is, solar panels to get back to the grid.
I think in 3 years' time, that this will be a completely different conversation because the technology is changing so rapidly.
I put your shovels in the ground in 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I appreciate your time, everybody. I really do. And I apologize if I was a little, I think that we're very, I'm frustrated.
I'm new to this. I know this has been going on a long time.
Yes, but don't take it personally.
I think.
Better, productive, all of us together.
Understand, I mean, it's been, like I said, years and as well.
And my parents there, my chair.
What was the gentleman's name?
I mean, I didn't even.
The first planning board chair.
George Weeks.
We still have one item, if we're done with this, we need to
Yes, definitely.
approve, so
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion, I repeat them. It looks like Donna was
I was
not
not here.
present, but 3 of us can vote on this. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt the February 15th, 2023 planning board meeting minutes. And I would like to second that motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay.
I vote yes.
So, man, can you vote?
Yeah.
I vote yes as well, and then it's adopted.
Okay. I'll make a motion to close the planning board meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Vote yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Good night, guys. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person.
Yeah, Margaret. Christine.
I hope I didn't step in any